Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one man review. Today I'm going to be doing a book I've been intending to do for a few years now, 2 or 3 years, I think. This is a book I've had for a very long time. It's Sexile by Jaime Cortez. Jaime was one of my graduate student instructors when I was an undergrad student at UC Berkeley. He did the art appreciation course, I think. I don't know that it was art appreciation technically, but there was like introduction to conceptual art kind of thing, and I believe that's the course that Jaime was my grad student instructor in, and we got to know each other and got to be like pretty good friends because Jaime was really into comics as well and saw that I was into comics, so we connected and he gave me this copy of his book. It's really cool. It's a flip book, so it's on the other side you have Sexilio by Jaime, and that's the Spanish language translation. What really forced me to finally get out and do this book is I was reading one of the mini Cush books. Just did a review on that, and there was essays in there, and I was doing a video poking fun at the essays and how much I really dislike academia in my comics, and one of them happened to be about Sexile, and I didn't even see that until I was recording the video. So I was like, I gotta, hey, it's about Jaime, so I gotta go get that, and I gotta go read it and talk about it. But the reason I wanted to talk about this book is this came out in 2004, 2005. I was at Berkeley in 2005. I think this came out in 2005, and I probably met Jaime in 2006. That's when I read this. This is a book that was funded by the Institute for Gay Men's Health and then the AIDS Project LA. So there was a lot of funding for it from these kind of social groups, and it is put together by Jaime, who's a queer artist from San Francisco. That's where I met him, in Berkeley. And then it is a biography of a woman that Jaime knew, Adella Vasquez, who's from a trans woman from Cuba. And so this book was put together as a tribute to Adella, a kind of like a pro-trans book, and then also like an educational book in terms of AIDS awareness and things like that. And you can see other things in here, the Cuban Information Archive. It's a really well researched book with a lot of kind of institutional support for it, because at the time I think this was really, now we have a million like trans coming of age books or queer coming of age books and all that kind of stuff, but in 2004 2005 we didn't really have that. And that's why I keep meaning to come to this book and do a review of it. Is I'm pretty critical of most of these coming of age stories. I'm very critical of the whole kind of genre, especially of queer LGBTQ coming of age stories, or the coming of age story of like migrants or something like that. There's all of these coming of age stories now where people just kind of whine and bitch about how hard they've had it, because of whatever category that they're in. And they're kind of like these social justice minded books. And I tend to stay away from those topics because they're so politically loaded. I tend to not gripe about them. But really, in my mind, it's no different than the depressed white male artist sitting in his room, Joe Matt, jerking off, humping pillows, and oh, my life is so miserable. I just not a big fan of bitching and whining and complaining as a story method. And so these books where people are like, woe is me, my life has been so hard, look what I've had to overcome, always put me off, not because I'm anti-trans or anything like that. I just don't like the approach. So I've been meaning to talk about this book because this came out way earlier. I've never heard anyone talk about it. I feel like a lot of those books that I dislike, I don't think they're good books. I don't think they're well drawn. I don't think there's good storytelling in them. They get celebrated just because the topic is considered important. But then a book like this, which is legitimately really well researched, well drawn, well written, it's not complaining. It displays like a character, who has gone through a bunch of hard things but doesn't whine and bitch about it. Someone who still found their power within that. I've never heard anyone talk about this book. So I've been meaning to do that as a, like, look at what it could be, and explain my distaste for those other things. But I never wanted to get into the political bullshit that would come along with that either way. Like, I don't want someone accusing me of being a transphobe because I think most trans and LGBTQ and coming of age stories are shit comics that are getting hyped because of the topic. But also, I don't want anyone on the other side like misunderstanding. I'm not critiquing those things, like that kind of complaining structure shows up everywhere. And I do think those stories should be told, and I think they can be told well. And so this is a good example of it. So we'll go through now, and I'll show some of what that is and why I appreciate it. So Adella was born in Cuba, and that's also part of Jaime being Hispanic or Latin or Latinx. I don't know. He would have probably said Hispanic when we met. Probably would say Latinx now. I don't know. Those things shift, and that also irritates me because I can get in trouble just by not knowing. But Jaime is Hispanic, and so is obviously involved in that culture as well, and has that in common with Adella coming from Cuba. So Adella was born in 1958 in November in Cuba, so very closely related to the times of Fidel Castro coming up and changing Cuba. Grew up in that Cuba. And you see like these beautiful drawings by Jaime here of the baby. Jaime is really, really awesome with ink wash. And I was doing a bunch of really fun, like the really super gay superhero type of luchador pencil drawings as well when he was at Berkeley. But really fun art throughout, like really trying to like kind of capture what Adella is describing to him. The book is definitely like Jaime went and interviewed Adella, you can tell. And so it's Adella speaking in Adella's own words, and then Jaime kind of like picking and choosing and putting that together as far as I can tell. And so Adella's character comes through, but it's not an autobiography. There's kind of this like critical remove of someone else organizing the story that I think helps a little bit. But also Adella is a very bold person and someone who's not going to sit there and complain. And so Adella's character coming through the book, I think, is really, really fun, and what made the book so impactful for me when I was reading it in 2005. So like one of the examples here is Adella saying, "I couldn't wait to grow up because I knew when I turned 10, my dick would fall off, my pussy would grow, and finally I'd become a complete girl." So that kind of just like, really bold way of talking, that makes it an approachable book and an approachable character to me. And then Adella is also just talking about, look, like not relating it to trauma or anything like that, just saying from the jump, I was fascinated by sex. I was fascinated by farm sex, cow sex, chicken sex, insect sex, like just fucking in general. So someone who's really owning it, like, I just like fucking. And like to the point where, and this is the thing that I think I've remembered the most over the years, I'll never forget this scene here. And this is just someone being really honest too. Like most people I don't think would admit this, but Adella's talking about like, hey, I was so horny that I carved a hole into a banana tree and would fuck it. And so there's stuff like that normally if I was reviewing stuff, I would say it's unnecessary to talk about fucking trees. I don't need to talk about fucking animals. Like all that kind of stuff that shows up in a lot of books that I complain about being edgy is different in this. This is someone talking about who they are, who they really are. It's not in there just for shock value. So I really appreciate that about this book. And then going on to show also pretty much admitting to abusing other kids, sexually abusing other kids with saying, hey, like you can come fuck the goat. And it's like, oh, there's no goat here, but you can fuck me. So like fooling other kids into sexual experiences and stuff like that. And yeah, it has this feeling of someone who's like in ownership of who they are. And that's the difference to me with this book from a lot of those other books. And it makes it, like I said, far more approachable. So that first chunk is talking about Adella growing up in Cuba. The second chunk is about Adella coming to the United States. So there was a point where it seems like like Castro said, hey, if you're not on board with all of our rules, then get the fuck out of Cuba, which I think as terrible as that is to kick a bunch of people out of your country, at least they didn't like go eliminating them all and they set up something. So Adela was able, as at the time, someone who was identified as gay, homosexual, was kicked out and sent to America. It's, I guess, better than a concentration camp, but you're still condemning someone to be a refugee. So there's that part of the story about immigrating to America, getting on the boat full of people, worrying that you're going to make it, working your way through the detentions, well, not the detention centers, but like the refugee centers. You can see here talking about being at Fort Chaffee. It was a huge old Army training camp, 7,000 acres, over 500 buildings. We couldn't leave, so really it was a prison. And then here is again the difference between Adela and a lot of like the stories I'm reading now, the coming of age story type of thing. So really it was a prison, but a super cute prison. It had churches, paved roads, trees, all the food you could eat, and a million things we didn't even know we needed. Not Miami, but not bad. So still finding this is a real like survivor's story and the survivor mentality of like, okay, like my situation's not great, but I'm going to find the things and make the best of it and grow. And so to me, that's like a way healthier coming of age story type of structure. You're still showing that you went through a lot of obviously getting beat up, has a black eye, has to sell himself out, to like find a daddy to get out of the camp and all of these awful kind of horrible things to go through. But really presents strength and gratefulness throughout the book. In the third section, you're finding out about Adela meeting Rolando Victoria, and that you see kind of this iconic image here where Jaime's taken this character and turned it into like a Mother Mary type of icon. This is a guy who took Adela in under his wing, kind of like a sugar daddy character that introduced Adela to like the full gay scene down in LA, I believe. So yeah, we're down in LA in 1981 with the AIDS epidemic fully kicking off. And you see Rolando here talking to Adela and being like, look, you got to put condoms on, because this character is someone who's working kind of with those communities that are already getting sick, someone who works in a clinic and is describing what they've been seeing. Like, we don't even know what this is, but I'm pretty sure, like, they didn't even know it was a sexually transmitted disease, but it's like, I think this is a sexually transmitted disease. Like, please wear condoms. And so basically probably saved Adela's life, because there was a lot of promiscuous sex happening in the scene at the time. I also like that, Jaime can get away with doing like dialect and stuff. I feel like if a white artist came in and did that now, if you had the "excuse me" kind of thing, you would get in trouble. But as a Hispanic artist, you can actually do that. And I kind of miss those things in books that give like a flavor of someone's accent. And it seems like in trying to be culturally sensitive, we've actually like whitewashed the culture and given everyone in the book same accents and stuff. So I like that in here, that there is a very like Latino vibe. Here you have a drawing. This is from when Jaime is interviewing Adela, showing George or Jorge. I don't know the proper pronunciation there. I'm assuming Jorge. And then Adela, so showing the transformation between the two. And then this section of the book is starting to talk about, going through the hormone treatment and all of that, and how difficult that can be, what it feels like, what the kind of mental and emotional changes feel like, all of that. To make her way, Adele has to start whoring out, and there's a quote on the previous page that says, "I am my own safety net. I fall, I'm fucked." Whoring has some pretty good benefits. First of all, hours are flexible. You can schedule your tricks around the Ricky Lake show, Pilates, laundry, teeth cleaning, whatever. So again, it has that thing where Adela's talking about like how bad this was as an experience for a human and how devastating it was, but also, again, finding the positive in it. Like, this is what I had to do to get to where I was. It wasn't great. It sucked. I wish the world wasn't this way, but I'm grateful I made it through. And like showing the strength of like I was my own safety net. I think there's a lot of encouragement in Adella's words throughout the book that get lost in some of these ones of like, I just kind of struggled through with everyone picking on me type of thing. So I wound up in 2005 or 6 whenever I read this. I was really, really impacted by this book. I was really impacted by the character of Adella, the person of Adella, Adella's voice, Jaime's art, the way Jaime organized all of the story. You can see it's only 65 pages long, so it's not even very long of a book. But it's a book that I'll never forget. I don't even think I've read it since I first got it, but there's so many of these scenes that I remember. It's a very, very powerful book, and I'm really sad and have always been frustrated, like I said, that with all of these books that I feel are far inferior kind of coming of age story books, that no one's ever really talked about this. I think it was just a book that was kind of ahead of its time. It wasn't really coming out in like the comics community. It was being done through this whole other kind of like AIDS education program in the Bay Area. I think there was just a lot of things working against the book being ahead of its time. So I wanted to bring this back out. I've been meaning to, but I've been scared to as well because it leads me into all these territories that I don't really want to discuss because it's too heated. But I think it's time. So I'm really glad that that Mini Cuse book had that in there and finally prompted me to do this. And then just because I know them, well, I know Jaime. I want to point out there's Jaime. He was, I forget, Demon Bear, I think was like his screen name. So he was very like fun, kind of leaning into the bear community. Super influential guy in my thinking. A lot of the conversations we had and that class that he was the TA in, I think really changed a lot of my ideas about art. And yeah, just someone that, even though we didn't spend a lot of time together, it was only one class, one semester, and then talking here and there, someone who's had a big impact on my thoughts as an artist. So thank you, Jaime. I hope Jaime sees this video eventually. And then here's a picture of Adella, so you get to see the actual character. Soy Adella, an off-the-hook tranny T-girl transformer Mera Yadema. I don't know. I'm fucking up the Spanish. So again, like someone just really owning it, and that makes this a way more interesting book. So I have no idea if this is something people can still get a hold of, if it's still out there or not. But if you can get a hold of it, I would highly encourage you to. And I would encourage people to go back and look at this. Like, look, there's ways to talk about these things that are adult and sophisticated and complex. And the coming of age story doesn't have to be just a bitch fest in the same way that comics autobiography doesn't have to be a whine fest about how miserable my pathetic, jerking off, lonely life is. There can be positivity in hard stories, and I think that's something really, really important moving forward. It seems like the bitch fest stuff has caused societal problems. Stuff like this, I think, can move us forward. So I don't know, we went somewhere wrong, but Jaime got it right in 2005. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart.